Women's Prison Podcast, where we are live on the rec yard every Wednesday night. Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. We are live on the rec yard, Women's Prison Podcast. I'm Marci Marie.
I'm Toonchi.
Toonchi, hi.
Girl, look at this. My cabinet door is open. My microwave is open. I'm so sorry. I can't live like this.
Were you? This is how we're starting
today. I'm a hot mess today.
This is how we're. This
What
is
a mess
how we
I
live
am
our
today.
lives. This is literally how we live our lives.
Yep.
Carrie, I welcomed in everybody in the chat right before we started, and so everybody was like, "Eek! This is pre-recorded. They're not live." Marcy's in the chat, and I had to say, "No, we are live. That is why we are having malfunctions." That is why Toonchi floated into the studio 10 seconds after 7 and then wasn't even prepared.
I still don't have none of my lighting done right. Look at this. It looks like I'm in an interrogation room.
Well, we are live for absolute certainty. Carrie, yes, get your coffee. We see y'all in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Jay, we see you. Laurie, we see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you guys for getting in that chat, getting active in the chat, communicating with us, communicating with each other. Thank you for liking the live, sharing the live. And if you're listening to us, you're not listening live. But if you're listening to us wherever you hear your favorite podcasters, please do leave us a review. We love that. It helps us reach an even broader audience. And we have we've got a show for you. We cannot not talk about the new Selena Yolanda docu series because we are Texas Women's Prison Podcast, and we did time with Yolanda, and we got to talk about it. We watched it. I just watched it today, too. So
you just watched it today.
Literally,
Boy, I can't wait to hear what you think.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. It's going to be a good show. We definitely want you guys to chime in with your opinions. If you've seen the docu-series, especially, or the beginning, right? Because it's just not even completely published yet, I don't think. But before we do that, let's get to this. Hey, Toonchi, let's do a weekly recap. Toonch, how was your week, honey? How was it?
I don't feel like
you don't remember what you did.
I don't remember at all what I did last week.
Well, you did have coffee with one of our newest Lioness members, and one of my besties from the penitentiary, Deja Ramos, is in the San Antonio area, and we're excited that we are building our organization in that area. We do have a steering committee member that's from that area, and we definitely have some really great allies that are from that area. But now we have a real go-getter. I'm really excited for her. She did 27 years, and she was my go-to girl when we got locked up, and I hope that I was that for her. We were very good friends and still are, and it just makes me happy when I saw you posted that picture of you two. I just felt like my world's kind of coming together in a sense, right?
Yeah, I had a good time, and we sat there at the coffee shop for about 5 hours. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm just excited for all the things that formerly incarcerated women are going to be doing in Texas, man.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I just love that single mothers of cats can sit in the coffee shop for 5 hours. And actually, Deja has a dog, because that would just, I wish that you guys can see me in the morning, even trying to drink my coffee before it gets cold.
God, Marci, now that you said this, I do want to share with everybody what happened to me last week. I don't think I told you.
Well, I
It,
don't know what you're talking about, so
gosh, one of my neighbors, I don't think
you
I
did
told.
tell
I
me.
did. Y'all,
Yes.
I was drinking my coffee in my doorway for a change. I normally don't do that, but I did, and the cat was being good, sitting here, not bothering anybody. And a police officer walked up, nodded, went to my neighbor's door, knocked on the door. Hey, I'm here with the police. Someone said you needed help, probably a wellness check, right? Well, my neighbor starts screaming terror. And then just boom, that cop just starts kicking the door in. Boom, boom. Like I'm standing there with my coffee, like, and Marcy, the way that affected me, not just as a person with lived experience with stuff like that, but the suddenness of it, the violence of it, the terror of it, it really, man, sometimes I think I'm healed and I'm not carrying all that stuff with me. I still do, right? It comes up, and when we talk about state violence and we talk about mental health issues and policing, like just even witnessing that kind of stuff affects the community, in ways that are hard to articulate. Now, I know that wasn't an update as something great that happened last. It focused back to a priority area important for me, which is mental health. Mental health supports.
Yeah, and it did happen. It was a recap, and it needed to be told, and it's something that I think happens often. I think that there are a lot of people that have witnessed things like that, and maybe it didn't trigger them quite the way it triggered you as a formerly incarcerated individual, but still probably triggered something inside of them, and it was a yucky situation. I remember that day you kind of sharing what was going on as it was happening, and I'm just sorry that I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it ended up it the end result was not, "Hey, are you okay? And if not, can I get you some help?" Unfortunately, the way that our system is set up, that's not what the police do. "Hey, are you okay? Can I get you some help?" It's, "Hey, are you okay? Okay, then I need to take you to jail, or I need to
Like
get
I
more
like what
aggressive."
like I don't understand that why wellness checks are done like that, right? Like in his voice, his intention was good. But the second that guy started screaming, and I'm not saying he panicked, but I guess he did, right? Like, well, I don't know if somebody's in there strangling you or if something is immediate. But when you have, and I guess this too was on the heels of putting together that video about my friend Yolanda, is that people with mental health, especially in psychosis, if they think people are out to get them, and then you kick their door in, then you're only proving to them what their distorted thinking is telling them, right? Like you're only confirming that. So what I don't understand why you just can't go to the apartment manager and say, "Hey, we're doing a wellness check. Can I get the key? Can you walk with me?" Just knock and open, right? Like just announce. If you have to open the door, why can't you do it with a key? Why do you have
Right.
to kick it in like that? And it was just a lot, honey. It was a lot.
That is a lot, and I'm sorry that for all of your neighbors, and for that neighbor that was in kind of a mental health crisis at that moment. Definitely sending love and good things to him, but to all your neighbors who were affected by that, even the ones that didn't come out, because everybody around heard what was going on. So, and that can be a scary situation for the whole community. We see you guys that are joining in, and we appreciate you so much. Jerry is here, and we're happy to see you, Jerry. Department of Corruptions is here. I think I missed him a minute ago, and we always appreciate you because you remind me to do my job, which is to remind everyone to hit that like button. So thank you for that. This week, I got to something for the first time, and that
Mhm.
was I got to attend the Dallas chapter of the NAACP, their monthly community meeting. And about 6 or 8 weeks ago, I got invited to be a part of their corrections committee. And it's kind of new for the Dallas area. It's a new committee for that branch, so I'm kind of on the ground level for that committee. But the NAACP in Dallas gets lots of letters from incarcerated folks asking for help. That especially people of color, especially men of color, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. Maybe making a positive change in my local community. And the Dallas County Sheriff was there. Now, Toonch, I was not excited. They were like, "Hey, the sheriff's going to be there. I want you to meet her." And me, I thought I don't have really much interest in meeting the police. Thank you very much. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. I went in very skeptical. She spoke to the group before I was able to have a conversation with her. She spoke to the meeting, and uh, you know, she's an elected official. So I'm like, okay, politician with a badge. And she was in full uniform. And I was just waiting to see what kind of smoke she was kind of blow. I was impressed. First of all, she's the first Black woman to hold that office, to hold that position. And so go her, because honestly, advancing women and then especially women of color, yeah, let's do it. But she talked about genuinely caring for the people incarcerated in her care and looking for ways that they're taken care of, and I felt like she was genuine, and I felt like she was sincere. Um, and I also was able to have a conversation with her afterwards and let her know who I was with Lioness, and what we're trying to do in our local area, our branch over here in North Texas, and also let her know that we had a lot of members that came through Dallas County that would have been shocked to hear what she was saying, because their experience in her county jail differed so much. And I just think that there's such a huge disconnect sometimes between leadership and then maybe their intentions, and even maybe what they think's going on, and
Right,
the actual happenings, day-to-day life in and out, from the CO that's working in the
right,
dorm type situation.
right.
But she seemed open to hearing that. Um, so I was impressed with her, and I left feeling a little encouraged. And I was also, like, the whole ride home, just turning in my head, evaluating every moment, because I almost felt like, did I get bamboozled? Because I liked her. I didn't expect to like her. So that was really interesting. And I do hope that that relationship with her benefits, especially the women, but everyone incarcerated in the Dallas jail. And I think that our organization having a relationship with her, and then her relationship also with the NAACP and the Criminal Justice Committee, that's what maybe how change happens. We're going to see.
Yeah.
We're going to see.
We're gonna see. We'll see where it goes. I think it can be difficult, right? Like not to support carceral systems, but also knowing that there are people in those carceral systems right now, and you can't get change without relationship. But where's the line with relationship? I think that we've done a good job with the women who are leaders in TDCJ and TJJD. Like, we understand each other's roles, and we just kind of find ways that we can respect and work with each other for the betterment of the women inside. And if there are things that don't feel good, like understanding that we're going to say that. So it's a delicate dance, but worth a shot, right?
It is worth it. And if something goes down in that jail, and maybe what my goal is to have some programming in that jail. And if I, she knows she knows I'm a TikToker, Toonch.
Yeah, right.
And so I thought, "You're kinda brave because I'll put it out there,
Yeah.
and that might cut ties, I don't know, because I'm not gonna change my responsibility to hold those folks accountable and protect especially the women, but everybody that's inside the best that I can.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waver on that, to maintain a relationship. And we did get a really cute picture together too. And she's in uniform, but she's got her hat on and she's a cute lady. She's a beautiful woman. And then her character makes her just kind of this cute lady,
Mhm.
for lack of a better words, and I don't mean any disrespect for that, because certainly she's a powerful figure in Dallas County, but she just was adorable, and we got the best picture, but I didn't post it. I thought about posting it, and I thought, I don't know if I'm ready to post a picture with me post up with someone in uniform. I have to I don't want for anyone who has been harmed by folks in uniform, that come to my platform for a safe place, and then hits with that, right? So, uh, but but I did talk to her, and she was great, honestly. So we can go on to the show. We don't have to keep talking about that. I felt like I had a really great night. I left feeling great. So excited to be part of, the NAACP Dallas branch. Super excited. Everybody was so friendly and welcoming, and yeah, so I think it's going to be great for me on a personal level and also for our organization.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I think so too. Now,
Um,
Marcy, we can't avoid it any longer.
yeah,
It's a big discussion, and it's
yes,
one
it is.
questions about all the time. And so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the new documentary on Peacock. First of all, Brittany, yes, it is the only fireplace I have. Um, but the new documentary on Peacock, Yolanda and Selena. So, do you want to?
Yolanda Saldivar, is that how you say her name?
Yes, Salvador. Hmm.
Incarcerated on the Patrick O'Donnell unit, formerly known as the Mountain View unit, in protective custody. And I have to tell how I know her, and that's when I
Okay.
first got incarcerated. For a very brief time, she was out of protective custody while she was incarcerated, and that happened on her own pleas and her own they let her out of protective custody. She was transferred to the Dr. Lane Murray unit months before I went to the Dr. Lane Murray unit, and then put she got in a relationship, um, some kind of girlfriend drama, and again, this is all secondhand knowledge because I didn't see it. She had already just within weeks, she was like, I'm brand new and not getting out of the dorm and only in clear observation mode, and so I didn't know anything about her. And then she gets out, she gets into this relationship and it becomes some kind of a mess, and she asks to go back. Why are you making that face?
Well, I mean, I know that you've told this story before, but I just I just can't believe that there was a moment that they let Yolanda out of protective custody. She wouldn't. I just can't imagine that she did not get beat up.
Everybody knew it. Everybody that was there knew that she was out. I mean, that everybody was like, "Hey," and I mean, I'll just put what it was. Nobody was saying Yolanda Saldivar is da da da. They're like, "Hey, Selena's killer's on the unit." Like that's how the word was.
Well, that's
Maybe we
interesting
need backup. Maybe because I was so new, maybe we need some folks that were on Lane Murray at that time to chime in and tell us.
because when I was what? Let's see. Let me go back. Let me tell you how long ago this was for me. So I was at the Texas Youth Commission when this happened. And so I didn't know who Selena was. I didn't know what Tejano music was. I didn't know, right? Well, my friends at TYC um, would listen to a lot of Tejano and Bitty Bitty Bumba. And I was like, oh, so I kind of knew who Selena was. And I remember coming out of my cell that day, and everybody was in the TV room with a little radio, bawling, crying, hysterical. And I was like, what happened? And they were just like, they barely got it out that Selena had been shot and killed. And there was this woman that did it, and she was sitting in her truck. And, you know, with the standoff. And it just, I'll never forget that moment. And I mean, it was just devastating. Like, I just won't forget it. So fast forward, I end up getting sent up, which that's slang for going to juvenile or county to the big house, the big adult prison. And so that was 97. And I remember Yolanda, when she arrived at Crane. So she was in protective custody at reception for a long, long time. And guess what? I was eventually filling her book orders in the library at Riverside. And so then I left, you know, I was out 5 years. And then when I got back to prison, she was already in protective custody at Mountain View. And that was 2010. So I don't know where she was in between the time, that 5 years that I got out, but I know for sure that she was.
Well, I didn't go in till 2010, Toonch.
Mm-hmm.
So it would, I mean, and again, mine is secondhand knowledge, but it was hot on the unit. Like, it was huge that this had taken place.
I do know right before I left Crane, they were talking about sending, and I think this may have been what happened, but I just don't think that she was in general population. They were moving protective custody from reception to Lane Murray, all of them. And so maybe that is what happened. I don't know. I mean, I can't, like, I just can't even imagine her walking
you think
around.
They would have got her?
Yeah.
You think somebody would have got her?
Oh, for sure. But I mean, she could have been in protective custody in ADSEG at Lane Murray and been wrapped up in some bullshit. And she would have been more visible, right? Like at Crane's reception and Mountain View's protective custody, that they are very shrouded. But, you know, Lane Murray, I mean, you're down that hall, so that could have been what it was. But because they would have, honey, they would have tore her up.
We need to know the full story. And so now my mind's like, I'm trying to even think, because I was in F dorm, the dorm right across from protective custody. I mean, we could sign to the people that were in protective custody or ADSEG. So that's interesting. Well, tell me, okay, you watch the docu-series.
Yeah.
And Yolanda, apparently she has not done an interview in English for decades. Apparently she hasn't been given a platform to tell everything. And this docu-series has, it's given her a voice that maybe she hasn't had before. If there's a lot of controversy around it, people are changing their mind. Others are getting angry that people are changing their mind about maybe the circumstances behind Selena's death. So, yeah.
Well, so I can't imagine anybody watching this doesn't know the story of Yolanda and Selena, but, you know, as we all should know, that Selena was an up-and-coming rising Tejano star that was going to be an international star, beautiful young woman, beautiful singer. Corpus Christi adored her, and she was just on this, you know, this journey to absolute stardom. And Yolanda was a woman that she met that ended up being the president of her fan club, and also helped at her boutique with some of her family and some of Yolanda's family. And something happened. The narrative around it was that Yolanda was obsessed, that she was stealing money. There was this big meeting that she supposedly had with the family, including Selena and her dad, Abraham. You're stealing money. There's these checks that you've written to yourself, and you need, stay away from us, leave Selena alone. And so what happened after that, they say that she just kind of coaxed Selena into coming over to her Days Inn room that she was staying at, and shot her out of rage and obsession as she was leaving the room. Now that has been the narrative for, my goodness, almost 30 years. And I mean, that was just taken as that was the circumstances around it. Yolanda has always maintained, I did not steal money. There was a lot going on behind the scenes. I was threatened and coerced. Me and Selena were best friends. I was not in love with her. I was not obsessed with her. We were best friends, like sisters. What happened that day was I threatened to kill myself. We had an argument and the gun went off. The end. I was like, girl, whatever. Right? Like, come on, man. Like, I took the narrative too. And a friend of ours told me, you need to watch that documentary. And I watched it. Someone else that had done time with Yolanda. And I texted her, I said, oh my God, girl, some of this was just not true. So what did you think?
Well, the name of the show is Yolanda and Selena, and it's on Peacock. And like I said, I watched it just today. And to be fair, full disclosure is I watched it with a 1-year-old crawling all over me, and my wife having a virtual class, so I'm hearing her speak to her teacher and classmates in her class all at once. So I couldn't be fully engaged. So I will say, I don't think that she stole money. I definitely she's responsible for Selena's death. That's not in
Right.
the air, right?
Yep.
But I think that she made just some excellent points about that was never brought up for proof. And of course, there was no charges behind that theft. There was no civil lawsuit behind that alleged theft. And so that was kind of now Yolanda in the docuseries blames Selena's father for spinning that narrative. And she talks about maybe some of his reasons behind spinning it. And that is kind of wrapped around, think about your girl bestie and what she might know about you that you don't want out in the public. And Selena was an icon and very much loved by her community. And I don't know if that narrative was thrown out there to protect a reputation. I couldn't form a full opinion except that I don't feel like the money was stolen. She wasn't even the president of the fan club anymore.
Right.
When that was happening.
Right.
Like that she hadn't been for a while. It's not like, that they were addressing something or the way the narrative was spun was she was the president of the fan club. And then when it all comes out, it's really not. She wasn't
Right.
when it went down that way. Their relationship had already grown away from I'm the president of your fan club, but I am your employee, but we're also friends.
Right.
I'm your employee. I work in your boutique, which according to this docuseries, Selena was very passionate about her designer line and her boutique and was wanting to grow that business. I don't know.
Yeah. And her dad didn't want that. And, just the narrative was that she was this crazy, obsessed, calculating. She got fired. Oh, we all hate you. Selena hates you. And she was stalking her. And then she coaxed her over there that day to purposely ambush her and kill her, right? And so when they're laying out what happened, she was like, okay, this meeting that supposedly happened, she said her family is the one that has pulled all this evidence together and said, well, first of all, the boutique was bankrupt. Like there is not anything to steal here. Did Yolanda write some checks to herself? She said, yes, I did. Selena asked me to because we had to have money to go to Mexico to meet this doctor that she was having an affair with. And she couldn't pull the money out because her dad would ask, what are you doing with it? So I did. I'm covered. That's my bestie. I am doing the go between all of this stuff for you as your best friend. And she goes, that's why those checks happened. She said, but there was no proof. And in the documentary, Marci, the DA and the cops were like, I don't know if she was stealing like, I don't know, $30,000 to $90,000. And they're like, okay, but do you have proof of that? And they're like, I mean, I don't, it was something that came, and there's like, you don't like, there's the bank account. Like, where's the money? And
I
it's like,
agree. Nobody could say, the investigators, the detectives, nobody could say, "Well, yeah, here's
here's
what
the
was stolen."
statements, here's the, and
30 to $90,000?
right. And
I mean,
no,
that's a huge window. You have to acknowledge what Sandra Madrid is saying, and Madrid and I, this is my friend from the Dr. Lane Murray unit. She was housed in solitary confinement for a significant amount of time during her incarceration. She says Yolanda is her friend, and she believes her.
yeah. Is this the same Sandra Madrid that did time with me at Mountain View? Because if it is, hey girl. um,
She did a good amount of time, so it
yeah,
it
she
very
did.
well could
So,
be.
um, so the thing that really sold me, Marcy, I'll tell you what did it for me was like I was looking at all the financial stuff and like that's crazy. Like, where is the evidence of that? And the fact that her dad came out immediately, your daughter has just died, and you've immediately come out before the police, before the investigators, and said it was Yolanda, it was this, with no emotion and controlling that narrative immediately. Right. And I mean, who really thinks of that at the time? But I
A
was like, yeah,
publicist. A
right.
publicist. He was not acting when he gave that statement. The reason there was no emotion and things behind it, and no doubt Selena's entire family was harmed by this incident. I'm not taking away from that, but I feel like he was her manager. He handled all of her publicity. That was his job, and he was showing up in that capacity. At that
Yeah.
moment, he was squashing whatever. I believe he was squashing what he didn't
Right.
want to happen,
Well,
which was
and this is what did it for me was that several things, but the main thing was when her family says, this is the tape from her answering machine. Yolanda, here's the letter. Here's also another tape of Yolanda left. Whatever happened in that meeting scared the shit out of her. She left. She went back to San Antonio. She had accepted a job that was on the voice on the answer machine. Thank you, Miss Saldivar. Please bring your license, your nursing license, yada yada. After this meeting, and she had a letter of resignation that Selena's husband admitted that Selena got. She resigned. And then this was it. Marcy, that answering machine message after this horrible meeting, after she's been accused of being obsessed and a thief and all this other stuff, is Selena messaging her over and over the same way I blow you and Lori's phone up. Girl, call me back. This thing happened. Oh, I'm over here now. Where are you at? And her nickname was Buffy. Where are you at, Buffy? I want to tell you something. Like several messages. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So her and Selena were still really great friends after this supposed incident. And Yolanda said, me and Selena, I did go and talk to her, and she refused to let me resign. She was like, no, I need you. We've got to do the boutique. Please help me with her Mexico boyfriend, the doctor. And she goes, I'm scared of your father. I bought a gun. She goes, girl, take that back. And Yolanda took it. There's records that she took it back. And so it's, I think one guy in the film, it might have been the hostage, negotiator, and he said everything that was Yolanda was saying in that truck, I believe is genuine. Like, and Yolanda's telling what happened in the truck. Like, I'm afraid, you know, and
He
just,
was distraught. I
yeah,
mean, this is a crime that took place almost 30 years ago, and it was the negotiator. He was, believe, authentically distraught on this docu-series. You guys have to watch it, because when you're when you're watching him, I mean, you watch the live video footage and live recording of Yolanda holed up in the red truck, and then you're hearing his insight, and you're listening to the tapes, and then you're seeing the emotions on his face as that progresses. um yeah, it makes you really wonder why we bought
right,
what
right.
dad said
Well,
and just accepted it. And maybe it was so much emotion for the loss of Selena.
well, I think it's when you look at another case of a father being weird and controlling is people get strong feelings about Casey Anthony, but when you look back later, and there's a great documentary on Peacock about Casey Anthony, and it, it shows the way that her father every step of the way tried to control the narrative about what happened. Now, does that change that her daughter died? Does this change that Selena died? No. And the negotiator in the Selena documentary says, you know what? Sometimes people just don't even care what the truth is, right? Because this beautiful person is now been taken away from us. And do we know Yolanda's motive in that room in that moment? I don't know, right? But I know that the things that she's talking about now make sense and that there's evidence for. So, but does that mean that she is telling the truth about what happened in that room? No, right? And especially in Texas, you already know, if you have a gun, then you know there's a possibility that somebody's finna get hurt, right? That under the law, like that is culpability. A loaded gun, straight out, you already know that something bad could happen, um, and that's where they get her. Now, over the years, I have not liked Yolanda's appeals, because appeals have been based on what everybody's talking about in the chat, which is their religious beliefs. That when Selena was at the hospital, and they were trying to save her life, she needed a blood transfusion, and her family, being Jehovah Witness, they don't believe in blood transfusions, and so they were like, no, right? And so the appeal was, well, she died because she didn't get a blood transfusion. It's like, Yolanda, no, she died because you shot her, right? Like, come on.
Right.
I get grasping at straws when you're doing appeals, but I think she has more of a claim here with these surrounding things that she was not able to present at trial. But I mean, I think at this point, Marci, you're not. She, that's it. And everybody's up in arms because she's eligible parole. First of all, after 30 years, but she's not fixing to make parole, and we all know that. We all know that have been through the system. She's not.
2025, she's eligible for parole next year. By I mean, this is even the parole board, and Yolanda says, I didn't have my trial. I had my trial in the media. The media
Right.
decided my fate, and she was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. So if she were to parole out, she would be on parole uh, until she passed away. For the rest of her living life, she would be under the eye of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. But you're right. I believe that even her parole board hearing will have been decided in the media. They're going crazy about it.
Right.
My TikTok feed is Yolanda, and of course my TikTok feed is Texas Women's Prisons, and so of course
Mhm.
that comes up. But yeah, for sure, it's still a very almost 30 years later, high emotions and high profile. People adored Selena.
Yeah. I can't even imagine if something happened to my icon, right? Like I can't even imagine a woman that I adore and value and see, and is such a, like, the way a fan connects is so intense, right? Like, because it becomes a personal, what that person is, that icon becomes something very personal, right? I just can't even imagine. But what I do know is that if we're going to be about it, we got to be about it. And if we're about prison abolition work, if we're about redemption, if we're about transformative, restorative practices, that includes Yolanda. And when I see videos of people like stitching a part of her interview on this documentary, and then they're like swinging a bat, or they're like putting their gloves on saying, yeah, come on out, Yolanda. And it's like, that Yolanda represents incarcerated women, the legal system, the things that go wrong, narratives that are controlled by men. Um, and and that's hard, because everyone is, because of who the victim was.
No, I agree. I agree with all of that. And then I think that Parawoman Radio, she said, if we believe in prison reform, Yolanda, when she's eligible for parole, she would have served her time, and we believe she should be home. I mean, you really can't believe two things at the same time, or you can, but it's not. Then you don't believe in one very
Right.
powerfully.
Right.
If you believe in prison reform, and you believe that parole eligibility should be that's what it is. If you've done what you can inside to make yourself a better person, you should be out. If you believe those things, then you should believe that she should be out. If it was any other person on this planet, just about, and certainly in Texas, she was just such a huge icon for us in Texas, especially, um, and Mexico, right? All of that, all of our culture here. Um, but if it had been someone else in Texas, if it had been me, you know, everybody would be like, yeah, this girl, man, I don't know what happened, but she's been in there 30 years. Let her out. No matter what happened, she's not the same person she was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I remember, I had a boss when I worked at AIDS Foundation Houston. Her name's Maxine. She was a woman that had done a lot of time, Mountain View, back in the 80s. And she was about restorative justice, like, period. Like, she did not believe in prisons. And her grandson was murdered in a club outside of Houston. He was going to Sam Houston. He was a football player, just on his way. And he got into a fight with some boys and was murdered. Well, the boys that were caught for this, they were his age, and some of the family was, I'm really angry and really going for the max. And I remember when she told me about it, she came to a peer education conference because I was locked back up again, and she had told me what had happened. I was like, oh my God. Like, and she goes, and he was going to sign, or they were going to give him 50 years. And she says, man, and I was expecting her to be like, that's not enough, right? Because she's a grieving grandmother, and she goes, and it broke my heart, because that other young man's life is over. And for what? That's not going to bring my grandson back. And I was like, damn, Maxine. And she was like, well, it's true. I told his mom that, like, I know you're angry and I know you're upset, but these young men, what is justice? And I'm like, damn, bro, you talk about somebody living their values after your grandson has been in a tragedy. and it left such an impression on me that man, what is justice? What is, and I think when you look at Yolanda's case, Gypsies, all these bigger high profile cases about women that we know or we know in the media, and you just, if you're willing to look at the complexity and the gray areas and say, what is justice though?
And that's with every single person that I met while I was incarcerated. And I was on a maximum security unit as you were. We were with people that were very high profile on episodes of Snapped and the First 48 and just hugely publicized and kind of made into these monstrous women, these evil women. And it just showed that one part, right? Well, I mean, if someone looked at, and I didn't have a violent crime, but you could look at me and take parts of my life, and if you televised them and spun it in a way, I would look like the most evil woman, this treacherous, manipulative, hateful, because I have felt those emotions like every person on this planet, but because I just think that the way that you're right. I mean, and it is men spinning that narrative generally, but that's how it was with everybody I was locked up. There was not this black and white. There was a huge every story. And guys, I want to tell you, the people that I was locked up with bigger crimes are the ones that I trusted the most and the lower recidivism rates. Women that had been incarcerated for some kind of violent act, it was generally reactionary. It
Right.
wasn't some, you know, horrible big master plan. Now there were a few of those, not to say that that never happens, but generally it was a reaction that could happen to literally anybody. And I mean, I think people are more likely to snap, if you want to use that word, that like the show, uh, and have a violent reaction to something that pushes them, that triggers them, that pushes and pushes and pushes at them till they break,
Mhm.
than to go out and steal over $200,000 like me. I mean, I'm just saying, it's
Mhm.
just, I carry this kind of privilege because my crime was this white collar crime and people don't look at it as serious. But in actuality, uh, people are more likely to commit a reactionary crime, you know,
Mhm.
than me, so, or than my crime is what I'm trying to say. I hope that's making sense. What I'm what I'm saying is we do need to take our narrative back, and it's important for all of us, whether you've committed a crime or not. It's important for women to own their own stories and control that narrative, right? Uh, so I respect this docu-series for hearing Yolanda and giving her an opportunity. And whoever said it in the chat a second ago, nobody knows but her and Selena. And
Yeah.
Selena's not with us anymore. There's one person alive that knows what happened for sure in that room.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that overall impressed me that I didn't believe or know before, and I heard Selena on that answering machine leaving messages for her, and her voice and the excitement and the love and the affection in that. I was like, wait a minute. They were really close friends, like right before this happened.
It
And
was not
so,
one-sided relationship the way that it was spun in the media. It
no,
it it seemed like Selena, and if you look, frankly, if you look at the picture, that was an easy narrative for him to spin. Here you have this young, gorgeous, full of life, loved by everyone, up and coming music artist, like this huge, especially in the Latino community, but in Texas culture, we loved her. Everybody loved her. And then you had Yolanda, which was just this average looking lady that didn't just have a whole lot going for her. She was just an average person. And so it was really easy to kind of spin that, um, without playing those messages, right? Had those messages come out during the trial, that I don't know that Yolanda would have gotten a life sentence.
Yeah, this isn't, the motive is not making sense, right? Like the way the law is designed is that if this is first degree murder, then we've got 0 to 99. If this is second degree, we've got 0 to 20 years. And if it was the heat of the moment and you had a gun on you and you're threatening to kill yourself and we're arguing about, I don't want to do this anymore, or what happened to this money or this plane ticket or whatever, and you just get irritated and point the gun at me, or if you had a baseball bat and you were just like, bitch, shut up, boom, right? That is second degree. That's moment, that's the heat of the moment, a passion crime, right? And so I think if she had all of this that she was able to present as her story, then I think you're absolutely right. Right? Like I think the pressure of who it was may have still ended up in a very huge sentence, but the truth matters. Even now it matters. Like you said, that is her story. And what bothers me is that if society is stitching those videos and swinging bats and yeah, come on, and we're waiting on you. I can't wait for you to get in the threat of violence, right? Like, well, then who are y'all? Who are you to
Isn't
judge
that
anybody inside? If your first reaction is, yeah, come on up out of there and we'll take care of you then. Well, so that might as well be Marci. That might as well be Alexa. That might as well be Mandy, right? And maybe Yolanda wasn't as close to me as some of the other girls were, right? Because she was in protective custody, and we filled her books for years, and just very limited contact. She was still one of us. So if society will do her that way, she's no different than any of us that were wearing white. And I'm gonna be mad as fuck, right? Somebody stitch a video of your fucking interview somewhere, oh, and swinging a bat. Come on, Marci Simmons, come on out here. I got something for you. Girl.
Isn't that a terroristic threat? Like, isn't that I'm fairly certain I was incarcerated with people for doing that same kind of thing, except on the phone with someone or in a public place against someone. That's called a terroristic threat. Am I way reaching here? How can they even make a threat of violence against someone? Is it because she's incarcerated?
Yeah,
Is it
I guess.
because
Oh well, it's an incarcerated woman. Who cares? Because the victim that died was somebody I really adored, and so I just, and I've always said this, right? Like there are women that we were locked up with that did things far more heinous. Let's be honest, far more heinous, and I believe their motivations. I don't have any doubt in my head, right? But I don't care what any of those women have done behind those gates. I don't, Marci. They, all I see is myself. All I see is you. All I see is Mandy. That's all I see, and that's just how I feel about it. It's not a popular opinion, but oh well, right? If we can't stand up for the least of ours, then who are we to stand up for any of them?
Well, we certainly don't discriminate when we're advocating for women in Texas prisons to be heard and valued and respected. And you're right, that's not the popular opinion, but it is what we stand for, and it is what's in our hearts. And that's not to say that everyone I met while I was incarcerated I liked. It's not to say that everyone that I met while I was incarcerated, I felt wanted good for people. Like there were some people that I thought, I don't know, I don't know. I worry about you, There were a couple of that. And so I'm not saying that that just doesn't exist, but yeah, still I stand with them because still collectively, every single incarcerated woman in Texas is being victimized right now. If you are locked up in this state and female, in some way, the state is harming you in some way, and that's not okay. No
Yeah.
matter what, that's not okay.
And it's not okay, for this mob mentality, and you see that type of stuff at trials, right? When I've watched, I I like true crime, and not for the industry that is, but I love understanding people's more to the story, right? Because it makes me not feel alone. Like, this is a human condition, these emotions, these complications, these tragedies, right? Like, it makes me feel almost normal, Marci. Like, this didn't just happen to me and my family. And I was watching something about, maybe one day we can talk about Jodi Arias, because you talk about somebody with borderline personality disorder. That's it, in a relationship with a narcissist. But I remember watching her trial and some of the things around that, and just seeing people running like crazy people, rushing the door and standing outside and waving signs and selling t-shirts and burn, and just all this hateful shit. And I'm like, you don't even know that lady. You don't even know that lady. What the fuck? Like, why are you there? Like, why are you relishing in this mob fueled vengeance rage with some people you don't even know?
Which just causes more. I mean, it's just that whole cycle of violence that we talk about. Violence begets violence begets violence. And when is that going to stop? And these folks out here, what do they think is going to be positive in their life or in the community if they are to harm somebody getting out of prison? Like, there's nothing positive. That doesn't even, it just causes more harm. It just causes a whole nother slew of victims. Uh, yeah, and just, we're almost at our time, but Selena's had some. I mean, pardon me. Um, Selena's family has not been on. I didn't see them. Did you see any of Selena's family? I don't think so
On the
on the.
documentary? No.
Mhm.
Uh-uh.
But Yolanda's had some family that came forward and said, I don't publicly say this is my first time. I'm bravely saying, yeah, we don't have the same last name, so people don't connect us, and they look alike. they they look like family, and they're like, we're here. And
Yeah.
no, during this time, all of this happened, and it just got me thinking about how this act, whether it was cold-blooded murder or whether it was an accident, it created so many more victims. And the way that our media and culture is still kind of embracing this hateful behavior, it's still victimizing Yolanda's family,
Yeah. And
Selena's
Selena's family,
family
right? Yeah.
were. Yeah. And so it's just this huge. And so hearing her perspective also, I just thought, gosh, but she had some things to say.
Yeah.
And that was pretty brave of her, guys,
Yeah, it really
considering
was.
the threats that are against Yolanda, for her to come forward and say, I'm Yolanda's family. I also worked at the boutique and I witnessed all of these things. This
Yeah.
is not what they were friends. They were best friends.
Yeah. Well, and to watch her just, break down at the end and say, Yolanda may be my aunt, and I love her. I love her, and I believe her. She just started sobbing. She goes, but Selena was my friend. So how do I hold those two things? It's not easy, and that was the truth. It's not easy, right? And that's what it is, Marci. People like to talk about our disorder being a lot of black and white thinking. It's either this or that, right? Like, the reason why that's considered emotional immaturity, right, is because children don't know how to think, in their little brains are not capable of thinking about the complexities of life. So it's this or that, right? Like, because, oh, that's easier. Because the brain is not developed to think all the extra stuff. But as an adult, we should have moved past that to be able to say, well, it could be this, it could be that, but it's also all this other stuff, right? And people, it is easier for them to say angel or villain,
Yes,
victim or, saint, hero, bad guy. But that is not the way the world works, and people are not neatly fit into those boxes at all. Not even good guys, not bad. There are no good and bad guys. There's only
well,
behavior.
we're taught that. We're taught that from, I mean, the white cowboy hat and the black cowboy hat, and this is, I'm probably showing my age, but even growing up playing cowboys and Indians, like, this is our culture, is to make someone the good guy and make someone the bad guy, and not have emotions or feelings behind what happens to whomever we have deemed the bad person.
Right.
We don't have to feel or care about that, because yeah, and we have,
And to overlook the things about the good guy, the angel,
mm-hmm.
and overlooking the things that show them, like Selena. And I think you're right about the maybe that was a motive to control the narrative, is that she's a woman, she's a grown woman with all this complexity, right? She's not a perpetual teenage child, right? With pure, I don't know, whatever, right? Like, she's a married woman that's having an affair with an older man.
I wish that some more, and this is just me being nosy, but I do wish that some more would come out behind the affair. And so maybe that's coming. I'm not sure. We're past our hour, Toonch. We
All
do
right.
have, Parawoman Radio says, "Hey, maybe y'all should talk about Jody." Um, it is a very interesting
It's
story for
fascinating. I get real
certain.
worked up about her case too, because that poor woman is not mentally well, and she was demonized in a way that just, I have BPD, so I understand. Like, I think, because I just understand more of what that intensity feels like.
Alfred Smith is asking about, and we can't get into this, but we could answer that at the beginning of the next episode. How do we feel about guns? How do we feel personally, Toonch and myself, about firearms? And we can get into that. I will tell you that I know my mental health, that I should not have access to a firearm, because my borderline personality disorder, it can get triggered. And I have known that from a very young age, that I shouldn't have one. And so I don't have one. Of course, I have this felony conviction that keeps me from having one now. But I'm just saying, as an adult, even prior to my incarceration, and we will, Toonch, any final thoughts? We'll get into the guns. Can we get into the guns just briefly at the beginning of the next episode? What do you think, Toonch?
I mean, we can. I have very strong feelings about guns.
Yeah, we could talk about that. We can't get into it right now, but we will be back here next Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. We will be live on the Rec Yard. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Y'all have been incredible in the chat. Thank you for your insight and for your questions. We love you all. Thanks for hitting that like button, sharing the live, all of those good things. And remember, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, iHeartRadio, wherever you hear your podcasts, please do leave us a review. Any final thoughts, Toonch?
You tell Brittany that's the best fireplace to have, is one you ain't got to clean out.
Yes, okay. I will tell her in case she's missing the last of the episode. Until next time, we love you all. Thank y'all for hanging out with us on the Rec Yard Women's Prison Podcast with Marci Marie and Toonchi. Make sure and subscribe